This is Chippy from carrypad.com, and in this video we're going to look at the iPad and the Archos 5 and try and do a comparison. Now, a lot of people have been asking about the Archos 5 and the iPad and how they would compare. A lot of people also say, why would you compare an Archos 5 and an iPad? Well, there is some crossover. They are aimed at slightly different markets and they are slightly different in the way you would use them, but there's definitely some overlap there, certainly in the area of home use and bed, sofa surfing, those sort of scenarios. So let's take the device. I've made some notes because I don't want to miss anything. There's some important things that we can talk about in this video. So grab yourself a cup of tea. This video is going to be about 10 to 15 minutes long, and we'll see what we can do to go through everything. So for those of you that haven't seen the iPad, and I'm sure there's not many of you out there that haven't heard about the iPad, but this is the iPad in a case, of course, 9 inches of pure glass design. Actually really nice design. This aesthetics of it are fantastic. In terms of usability, I have some queries about it, especially the very slippery, smooth aluminium back, and the weight of it as well. I would question that, but we'll talk a bit more about that. Based on the iPhone OS, running a 1 GHz A4 CPU, a very good high-end, leading-edge implementation of the ARM v7 core. This is the Archos 5, so completely different in terms of sizing, but in terms of form factor, it's very similar. It's a slick design, nice, again, shiny, slippery back. So again, similar problem to the iPad, although the difference with this one is you can hold it tightly in one hand. You don't have to be worrying about 680 grams worth of weight. This is 230 grams, I believe, in total. So there are the two devices together, and you really would wonder why someone would compare the two. But let's go through a few scenarios, and you'll see why there's some overlap in these two devices. So let me give you my summary of the usage scenarios for the iPad first. This is very much a home device. It's going to give you a very fast web experience and, of course, the application experience from Apple, which brings a whole host of usage scenarios: gaming, social networking, a little bit of productivity, reading as well. But this isn't a mobile device. Number one, it's quite a heavy, big device. It's also quite expensive. No 3G in this version, and there's some limitations in terms of functionality. It's a single tasking operating system. The connectivity is rather limited too. There's no SD card slot, for example. There's no way to connect a USB device directly into it. So it's very much a home device, and that's really where the overlap is, because that's what the Archos 5 is as well. It's very much a home device aimed at web usage, ebook reading, e-reading, video playback, and social networking as well. Again, only a Wi-Fi device here. There's no 3G in it. It has Bluetooth, as does the iPad. So there's the overlap. It's very much a home Wi-Fi hotspot type device. Touchscreen like the iPad, but a very different type of touchscreen. This is a resistive touchscreen, and it doesn't have that fluid physical dynamics that the iPad does. So the user experience is very different with the Archos 5. It's if you're coming from a high-end smartphone or from an iPhone or anything like that, you'll regard this as a fairly poor touch user experience. If you're coming from something like a UMPC or a touch-enabled netbook, then this is comparable. Resistive touchscreen, needs the side of the finger. You can't be swiping too much with your finger because it doesn't register it properly. So slight differences there. Before we go on, let's mention the price. $230 buys you the 8 GB version of the Archos 5. This is running an ARM v7 core, just like the iPad, but this is only at 800 MHz, whereas the iPad is at 1 GHz. Both are actually very good CPUs, good implementation. This is a Texas Instruments implementation. The iPad uses Apple's own implementation of the CPU. So let's just talk about the web experience first. Obviously Safari on the iPad is a superb browser. There's no Flash support, but it does a very good job of formatting web pages, zooming, reflowing the text, and providing a fast JavaScript experience as well. So web applications that aren't based on Flash do work quite nicely. It's a single window experience, although there is a quasi-tabbing or quasi-multiple window experience, but each of those windows actually become snapshots and get reloaded every time you bring them to the fore. But the actual web experience, including the zooming, which you all know about, is really fluid and really nice and very quick. And this is actually one of the, if not the fastest ARM-based web experiences available right now. Apple have done a fantastic job there. You can really get quite a lot on one page. Of course, if I just turn the lock off here, in landscape mode, you can really get a lot of content on the page. Let's bring up the keyboard there. Accessing web pages is pretty quick. So of course we can zoom up and down that, zoom in. It's a really nice, enjoyable experience. Some backfill there we're waiting for, but in general it's bringing up the main content very quickly, and it's an excellent web experience. So the Archos 5 has a very similar display resolution, so you get a very similar amount of quantity of text and content on one screen, but the size of the screen does make it a little bit more difficult to read. This is very much a 20 centimeter experience, and at 20 centimeters, in fact 5 inches with a WVGA screen. Actually, I need to correct myself. This is a WVGA 800 by 480. This is a 1024 by 768. So there is more content on this screen than there is on this. But having said that, 5 inches with a WVGA resolution is pretty good for most web pages. You will be doing some left-right scrolling. Here's Google News coming up there, but the zooming, which is Android 1.6 based, so it's the little zoom bars at the bottom, there's no pinch to zoom on this, actually give you a pretty reasonable experience. And this one will rotate as well, and for something like Google Reader, actually the experience is really nice, especially in a sofa mode. And this is one of the differences between the iPad and these 5-inch devices, is that 20 centimeters is a really comfortable single-handed reading experience. It's as you'd use a paperback book. It's the same way of holding it. In fact, you'd hold a paperback book with 2 hands, but it's a similar weight, a similar size. This is actually slightly easier than a paperback book. Whereas if we flip to the iPad, we have 700 grams of device here, and that gives you a problem with single-handed holding, in that there's a lot of leverage on the hand. Either way you hold it, or you hold it 2 hands, which means it's really not that comfortable for a long-term reading experience, be it web, be it books, or Google Reader or whatever. So slight differences there. I would argue myself that the Archos 5 is slightly better for sofa reading experience, just purely because of the weight. This is 680 grams, 1.5 pounds. This is 180 grams. In fact, 230 if you put the case on it. So it's really super light. It's fast. Again, this one doesn't have Flash at all. It does have a limited amount of Flash video support. It attempts to do YouTube in a separate application, just as the iPad would, but actually Archos upgraded their OS on the Archos 5, and the Flash playback, the external YouTube playback has stopped working now. It used to be good, not good now. Archos need to update the firmware, and this is something we'll talk about in a minute, because the OS on the Archos 5 in general is not as good as the iPad. The stability and the quality of it is not as good. So a couple of statistics on the devices. The Archos 5 is going to give you about 7 hours of battery life over Wi-Fi. It's got a nice big 10 watt-hour battery inside that, but the main reason it's giving you a long battery life is because it's got a small screen. The backlight on this probably takes about a quarter of the power of the backlight on the iPad. And the iPad has a 24 watt hour battery. It's 2.5 times the battery capacity of the Archos 5, and that's why it's bringing you 10 hours of Wi-Fi on battery life, at least, in some cases more. But 7 hours is good. It's definitely more than the average web browsing session or reading session, and both of these would require an overnight charge. So battery life, really not an issue on either of them. Couple more specs. No GPS on this Wi-Fi version of the iPad. There is GPS on this Wi-Fi version of the Archos 5, but having said that, I'm not completely happy with the quality of the GPS on this anyway, and I haven't actually used the GPS at all, even for social networking through applications like Seismic, where you might want to put your location on your tweet. These being home devices, really, that's not really an issue, to be honest, unless you want to do experimentation with location-based services. Neither of the devices have a webcam, which you would argue on the iPad would have been a nice feature to have, given the fact that it makes a very nice video conferencing slate. On a smaller device, maybe not so important, but neither of them have the webcam anyway. And no 3G on either of these devices, although the iPad is available in a 3G version for, I think, $130 premium. There was to be a 3G version of the Archos 5, but it never appeared. In terms of audio quality, both have mono speakers. The iPad's mono speaker is excellent. I'd give it 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. The Archos 5 has just a good speaker. Give it 6 out of 10 or 7 out of 10. Both are good enough for listening to podcasts in the kitchen or for listening to videos. And most people will be using headsets anyway with both of these devices, so that's maybe not too much of an issue, but the speakers are reasonably good anyway. Right, let's talk about the video support on the two devices, and I think we need to start with the Archos 5 here, because this is one of the key features of the Archos 5. Archos have worked with PMPs and produced PMPs for a number of years now, and they're really getting to grips with multiple codec, multiple container, multiple format support, and it has to be said that this is pretty good when it comes to video support. You can throw almost anything on it in terms of codec and container, through to MKVs with H.264 video components, AAC or multiple audio soundtracks and subtitle tracks as well. This, the chances are that this will handle it. If you're a real video buff, there will be some things on this that won't work for you. You only need to take a look at some of the forums to see some of the issues that people are having. But in general terms, you can take most files you'll find on the internet, most files that are in your PC, and throw them on here and they'll work. There's a docking station available for this. In fact, there's 2 docking stations available that will help you put video out into your TV. It won't it doesn't have TV out by a standard, but you can do anything from S-video through to composite and up to HDMI output, 720p on that. I've played Windows Media Video HD on this, 6.5 megabits with really, it's got a lovely screen, really nice on this. Now the iPad is something different. You can't just throw a bunch of files on here. You need iTunes, you need your laptop to transfer the files. This is very much an Apple-centric video device. Having said that, it does have some support for other codecs. I haven't tried a load of test files on this because, to be honest, this synchronization process through iTunes is not helping me, and I've only had this device for 3 or 4 days, so I haven't been able to really test the video. But what I'm seeing is quite good quality. Again, 720p style quality, and if I just read off the specs page here, it's H.264 with AAC audio. It'll do MJPEG as well, which you won't find in many places. MPEG-4. I don't know if it'll do DivX and XVID style MPEG-4, and it's talking about output through the dock at 1024 by 768, so 576p and 480p out. Audio support looks like Windows Media Audio. No, not WMA, but MPEG-3 and WAV support on here as well. So let's get a little demo going for you here. This is Coral Reef Adventures. This is Windows Media video file, one of the demos from Microsoft's website. We'll just start that up to 720p, 6.5 megabits of Windows Media, and pretty smooth 720p experience. On the iPad, let's hit up some videos here. Videos, and there's some downloaded podcasts on here.
So adjust your desktop peak delay now with Desktop Peak Tweak. Now, do you have a tip, hint, or trick you'd like to share? Let us know.
And this is a nicer experience at about 1 meter. My issue with this though is that there's no stand for it, so you have to either get a case or hold it with your hand, and like the Archos, you've got that reflective screen problem as well. It's arguable whether you could hold this for 1.5 hours and watch a film on it. The A5 does have a stand which makes it a nice 30 to 50 centimeter experience. Let's just talk about apps for a second, and here we see a huge difference between the two devices. Of course, the Apple App Store is well known as having hundreds of thousands, I think 150,000 iPhone focused apps in there, and something around 10 to 20,000 I believe iPad focused apps as well. There's loads of stuff in, there's loads of crap in there as well, but the App Store experience is extremely good. You can buy very good quality apps, some great games, some great productivity apps, social networking apps, and a lot of the stuff that happens in the social networking world is happening on the iPhone first, so the iPad is supporting the iPhone apps, and you can use those, or at least experiment with those straight away. So really 10 out of 10. This is a leading edge App Store on here. The Archos fails somewhat because it doesn't really have a very high quality App Store. There's something called Apps Lib on this. Although this is Android, it does not Google Android, so it doesn't have the Google Marketplace on it. It has Apps Lib, which is a repository for free apps that have been put in by Archos. You can also access some of the other third-party app stores like SlideMe, and you can hack Google Marketplace on there. So there are ways to get the Android apps on there, and once you do get them on there, most of them are working. I've got WordPress, Last.fm, Seismic, eBuddy, NewsRob, Acast. What else have we got here? Pons. Yeah, that's pretty much most of the ones that I'm using at the moment. So if you're only after just a small selection of apps that you use on your phone, for example, for social networking and communications and emailing, this can do it, but it hasn't got the marketplace experience that the iPad has got. Right, I need to be checking my notes for this section because I want to talk about the comms capabilities of each devices. So this is the Wi-Fi only iPad. Wi-Fi, of course, Bluetooth, although there's a restricted stack. You won't be able to get every profile out of the Bluetooth stack on this. No 3G, and only the docking port as the physical connectivity port. And from there you can actually put an SD card adapter, which allows you to read SD cards, not write to SD cards. A USB adapter in there. Again, the USB driver support in the device may not be extensive enough for you to be able to just plug in a printer, for example, but you will be able to plug in, certainly they support some web cameras and some other devices like Bluetooth keyboards as well. This will also dock to the PC over USB, and it's all done through that, but you do need dongles for this. There's a 3.5mm headphone port on that as well. So this is much the same, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and a docking port under here, but it also has a USB port on the side, which means you can plug it in and it will become a USB hard drive, so you can transfer files to and from the device, and it will also become a USB media device as well. So for example, Windows Media Player sees it as a Windows audio device, and you can sync files and playlists and play counts to and from the device as well. But one great feature about this is it has micro SD card support, so you can put your 8 or 16 gig micro SD card in there and transfer files really quickly, and I find that an excellent way to be getting, for example, pictures from my mobile phone onto this as a storage and a kind of photo frame type device. There are docking stations available for this. For example, I've got one here. It's a fairly cheap docking station that gives you USB host support as well. So what you do is you plug in the docking port, and we'll do that now, and then you can plug in your USB hard drive there. And I have a 2.5-inch USB hard drive here, which it powers and uses as an external drive, so you can play videos off that as well. It also has AV out port for composite and an S-video out port as well, so for medium quality analog video output. And that's a very cheap docking station. There's another docking station that comes with a DVB-T module in it, so you can receive TV. There's another one that gives you HDMI out, and then there's the full PVR docking station, which gives you PVR support. So you buy the PVR docking station, which is about €90. You get AV in and out support. So this thing can actually record video up to, I believe, 720p. You can schedule TV to be recorded. There's a TV schedule application on here as well. So it then becomes a PVR. It's an extra 80 to €100 for that, but it does give you that nice docking station capability for TV, 720p type experience there. There's also another docking station that's got an extra battery included as well. So in terms of connectivity, this is the more flexible. With the USB, with the micro SD card slot as well, it allows you to be a little bit more creative in how you move files around between devices. One more thing on this one, there is the Archos music application as well, which is a reasonable quality music application, which allows you to create playlists. It allows you to search for genres, artists, keywords, etc, 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 and it will work off the SD card or the hard drive or an externally connected drive. And yeah, it's a reasonable quality music library and playback system on that one. Of course, on the iPad you have iTunes, and this probably not competing quite with iTunes. iTunes winning slightly in the music playback department. So let's try and round it up then. Two very different devices in terms of size. One handheld, one two-handheld, and that's the main difference here. Although these have similar functionalities in terms of sofa surfing, in terms of music and video playback support, social networking, application stores, battery life. The difference here is that this one is a very easy one-hand holdable device, 180 grams, 220 grams with the case. This is 680 grams, 980 grams with the case. I've just weighed this case. This case, that wasn't the Archos 5, that was the docking station that fell down. 250 grams worth of case, 300 grams, sorry. So you've got to think about how you use this device. If you're going to use it on the sofa, you've got to think about the weight of it. It is quite a heavy device. You've got to think about the distance at which you're going to use it. If you want to use it on a table at 1 meter, this is a better experience because of the larger pixel size or the lower pixel density on this. But at 200 grams, this makes actually quite a nice ebook reading experience. Things like Aldico and the Barnes & Noble reader work on here. You can buy books, read books, and store books on this. And this is quite a nice ebook reading experience. I would argue actually for a casual reader, this is a better ebook reader experience than the iPad, purely based on form factor, size and weight. Pricing wise though, again different categories, starting at $500, starting at $230, so you can buy two of these for the price of one of these. Although this doesn't have the app ecosystem, it doesn't have the style, it doesn't have the community that you'll find when you buy the iPad. This is more of a risky purchase. If you're the sort of person that worries about buyer's remorse at all, You want to think carefully about buying this, because there will be things that will let you down in terms of the touchscreen, the app experience, and even in terms of the OS stability. There is things that Archos need to do to make this a much more stable, fluid device. This is an easy purchase for the home, for the family, and for the coffee table. This is really much more of a personal device. Personal, social, sofa, communications device, family, gaming, social, app, experience device. They both overlap a lot, but they're very different. Think about what you need, about what you want, and how much you want to spend when you buy one of these two devices. I hope that's helped. Put questions in the video underneath on the comments. I'm going to try and follow those and answer all your questions. I have only had this for 4 days. I've had this for 3 months. Obviously I know a bit more about this than I do about this. Apologies if I've made any mistakes on this. I'll try and correct them with annotations on the video afterwards. Just let me know if you notice any mistakes. If I've missed anything, let me know underneath. Maybe I'll do a follow-up video as well. So this is Chippy from carrypad.com with the iPad, with the Archos 5. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, ask questions underneath and I'll try and answer them. Thanks.